I'll say a few words just to start, and I'll focus on where we are. And the question of whether it's a watershed moment is another big question. And I don't want to deal with both of them at once, but just on the where we are question, I think the United States and Israel started this war thinking that they were going to win a stunning victory. They did not. And instead, we've actually suffered a stunning defeat. Uh, Not many people in the mainstream media in the West will admit that, which is hardly surprising, but it is true. And if you look at the negotiations that are taking place, it's quite clear that the United States has conceded on almost every demand that the Iranians have made. It's really quite remarkable. And what JD Vance is now trying to do is just operationalize this set of demands that we have agreed to. Uh, and President Trump, of course, can barely bring himself to admit that we have lost. And therefore, what he's doing is going to great lengths to claim that we have won. And if the Iranians don't recognize that, he's going to bomb them again and so forth and so on. But this is all nonsense. We have no military option. If we had a military option, we would have used it a long time ago. The fact is that the last thing the United States wants to do is restart the bombing campaign. We just want to be done with this war. We accept the fact that we have lost. And I would just add, before I turn it over to Giannis, that I think the principal driving force here is not simply that we don't have a military option, it's also the fact that we're facing an economic catastrophe. And President Trump has actually said that. He has used those words, economic catastrophe. He has said that he does not want to be Herbert Hoover, implying very clearly that he does not want to be responsible for starting the second Great Depression. And the fact that these economic factors are so powerful, coupled with the fact that we have no military option, is what puts us in this position where we have no choice but to surrender. And if you look at what's going on, this is what you see happening, despite the fact that it's not the conventional wisdom at this point in time in the Western media. It is hard to understand why Trump was foolish enough to enter this war. Let me make the counter argument against you, which is not to say you're wrong. We may find out that you are right once more evidence comes out. But the counter argument would be that we actually fought a war, we meaning the Israelis and the United States, fought a war against Iran last June. This is the 12-day war from June 13th to June 25th, 2025. And we were quite successful, and Trump certainly felt he was successful. Remember, he claimed on June 22nd, 2025, almost a year ago, that that one-day bombing campaign by the United States had destroyed forever Iran's nuclear capability. So that precedent, I think, gave him a sense of optimism. And then he had been very successful with the Venezuela operation. Of course, there's no parallel between what happened in Venezuela, which was just a kidnapping operation that took a couple hours, and where they had the cooperation of the Venezuelan military on the ground.
Mhm.
No American casualties. So this was a very different situation. But nevertheless, I think you could argue that Trump felt he was on a roll, that he was being very successful with his employment of U.S. military force in Iran in June 2025, then again in Venezuela. And along comes Netanyahu and David Barnea, who's the head of Mossad, and they convince him that we have the magic formula, that if we launch a shock and awe campaign and we decapitate the regime, this will lead to regime change. The new regime will surrender, and the war will be won very quickly. And Trump just was enamored with that idea, and he had great faith in the Israelis, and he went along. That's the alternative explanation. But to come back at it from the other side, from where you were going, what's very surprising is that almost all of his aides, according to the New York Times story, outlining the position of all the principal actors inside the U.S. government on this issue, were opposed to the operation. They thought it was a bad idea. And of course, we know from the historical record that there's no case out there where air power alone caused regime change. And his aides, most of his aides anyway, the head of the CIA, Secretary of State, and the vice president understood this and argued against the operation. But Trump went along anyway, which supports your basic point that maybe the Israelis had secret leverage. Who knows for sure?